You read the Bible, Brett?
Yes.
Oh, there's this passage I got memorized. Sort of fits this occasion. Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
Do you expect me to talk?
Get down, 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 get down.
Hello and welcome to episode 102 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? I'm your host Becca, and as always I'm joined by stylish dudes Chris and Dave. How are you doing?
Good evening, folks.
Good evening. Yes, I'm currently looking up the metric system, whatever the fuck that is.
Deciding whether or not to eat your way out with cheese.
yeah, possibly. Well, yeah, dipping my French fries in mayonnaise.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which I think
And all the while, we're not going to be trying shoving up watches up our ass.
We'll try. We can't promise.
But how can we tell time? We have to bend over to... No, actually, no.
As if you haven't guessed, people, we are reviewing Pulp Fiction.
Well, the thing is, if your pants are already down because you're going to bend down to see what time it is, just go outside. You can use your knob as a sundial.
Stop it, dude.
If your pants are down and you need to know what time it is, go outside. Just not at night, you'll probably be arrested, and it wouldn't work anyway.
But you wouldn't be arrested in the day, though, would you? Cops will come over and think, what are you doing? I'm trying to tell the time. Oh, fair enough.
Watering the plants. What does it look like?
Yeah. Well, that'll be much better. That'll get me off the charge some fast.
That won't get you arrested, will it? No.
I'm outside trying to tell the time with my dick. Right? The police come over and you're like, shit, how do I get out of this? It's all right, officer, I'm having a wank.
Oh, that's okay.
Thanks. Would you like a contribution to the Forces Benevolent Fund?
Not that kind of contribution.
Oh. Yeah. I've gummed up quite a few of those sort of tips to put coins in. Coins tend to bounce off in my local Tesco now.
Okay, this has taken a turn for the unexpected.
You're not controlling this, Becca. It's entirely your fault. You brought this on yourself.
Oh, yeah, we'll discuss that scene when we come to it.
What, the scene where I kept off?
The scene where we discuss how he kept his punch up his backside.
All right, carry. Go on.
It's a classic scene, I must admit.
Oh. Yes, anyway, we are discussing Pulp Fiction, starring John Travolta, Uma Thurman, Samul L Jackson, Bruce Willis, Ving Rhames, Tim Roth, Eric Stoltz, Christopher Walken, Rosanna Arquette, and many, many more. The story is by Roger Avery, written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, and released in 1994. I feel old.
I'm shocked and appalled. Becca just swore.
I wouldn't worry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've got a fun fact about that later on.
She's allowed to. What are you about you being old or about you swearing?
Swearing.
Oh.
Yeah, Becky just said...
I first said bollocks at the Salisbury Market in 1993.
Yeah, we're not surprised by that anymore, Dave. It doesn't work.
Right. Okay.
Anyway. So how do we all come to Pulp Fiction? And what are our kind of... how do we all come to see this film? What impact has it had upon us? Chris, you can go first.
Okay. Well, Pulp Fiction was kind of like one of the big films that was, shall we say, was floating around in my twilight years of becoming a movie fan.
Twilight.
I wonder which bit of him it was floating around then.
But yeah, it was around the
That
time.
old are you, surely?
Yeah, when I started reading Empire and that kind of time where it was already kind of like the modern day movie classic, in quotation marks.
Before it was cool.
Yeah, so you had that and Trainspotting, I guess, was kind of the kind of cool films to see, I guess. And I heard like a few people like sort of talk about beforehand. So I first watched it when it was on BBC Two one night, and I remember my dad watched it when it was on because I videotaped it, obviously, because it was probably a school night, and and he said like, "Oh, it's like bollocks that."
This is a stirring story of daring do here. It was a school night.
It was a school night, so I videotaped. Yeah, but he thought it was, yeah, it was a bit overrated. Didn't see what the big fuss was about. I watched it and I was just entertained by every minute of it. I generally was taken with it. It was probably one of my favourite. It probably was for a period of time my favourite film. For a good part of about maybe 5, maybe 6 years, just because I couldn't think of a better film than Pulp Fiction. It was just so easily watchable, classic, really entertaining, all the rest of it. So yeah, I kind of interesting viewing this time, but that's kind of what I thought. What do you guys come to watch? Tarantino's second film.
This is so rare. This is so rare for me because I've got quite an unusual memory. I tend to remember all of these things, but I can't tell you when I first saw Pulp Fiction. I can tell you when I first saw Reservoir Dogs, and I hadn't seen Pulp Fiction at that point. I don't think. I think I saw Reservoir Dogs in late 1994 theatrically. I think because it was still this video nasty. The only pause for doubt I've got for that is it could have been earlier in 94. So it could have been around Easter time, but it could have been more like November. I'm not sure which. If it was the latter, i.e. around sort of November time, then the chances are I will have sought Pulp Fiction out pretty soon thereafter, because I've got a feeling it was released in the summer over here. But genuinely, and I know it's a bit of an anticlimax, I cannot tell you when I first saw it. I really can't. I've absolutely no idea. What I do know is that in the years that followed, I had videos, VHSs, literally videos of this, and Reservoir Dogs, and From Dusk Till Dawn, and later from Jackie Brown. I had all of that by sort of 95, 96. So it was always a film I liked. I never liked it as much as Reservoir Dogs. That's no longer the case. I do think it's a superior film. But I've got a sort of almost more nostalgia and enthusiasm for Reservoir Dogs because I loved it first and I loved it more than I loved this film. The only real problem I've got as I watch through the film is that I don't like the gold watch thing. Chris and I were chatting about this a little bit off air before we came on. I will talk about it more as we go through it, but I think I'm going to have to out myself as a bit of a Bruce Willis detractor, but I didn't even know I was. It's just, what's the problem here? Do you know, I don't think I like Bruce Willis very much. But we'll come back to that. The film in general impresses me a great deal. And the more you watch it with a critical eye, the better it stands up, actually. The more you actually sit and go, my God, what a Steadicam shot that is. Or, my God, what a really intricate bit of dialogue that is there. The better the film sort of comes off in the end. But very, very fond of it. But yeah, I can't tell you when I first saw it. What about you, Becca?
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one for me. Well, again, my AS Film Studies has a lot to answer for in terms of Tarantino. But yeah, I think we're sort of having a chat about this, and I was saying that's actually one of my least watched Tarantino's. I don't know why. Technically, it's brilliant. Dialogue's fantastic. Performance is legendary. And we still don't know what's in that suitcase.
No, but I don't think they know
moments.
either, if it helps.
I know what's in a suitcase. Light bulb.
Light bulb, yeah, that's it, a light bulb. It's not his soul.
A light bulb and a battery.
Elvis suit.
An Elvis suit, I've heard that one before.
A radioactive banana? No. The as you say, Dave, it is technically brilliant. It's not until you start to unpick it and say, oh, look at that shot, listen to that dialogue, or view that performance. Many moments of which were kind of done, kind of just on the spot, or improvised. For some reason I don't know why I haven't seen this as many times as I have some of the other films. I think probably Just Till Dawn, and it's not like directed by, but that is, I'm not a big fan of that film, unfortunately, so that's like my least watched.
I wish we were covering it just to sort of learn why, really, but I appreciate that you asked.
Not a big fan of, like, I don't know, I just...
Vampires and things.
I struggle, like, with Grindhouse, for example. Death Proof, I was fine with. I'm not a big fan of, like, the whole, obviously, like, Nosferatu, Interview with the Vampire, of course. The kind of vampire movies, I'm just a little bit like, not really...
Fair enough.
Not really enamoured to, generally. I don't know why. It's a very popular genre.
I watched Dusk Till Dawn probably before Pulp Fiction, funnily enough. And I had a heck of a viewing experience with it. It was one of those things where I was really entertained for all of it, but the last half, I was generally kind of like nervous and terrified, but couldn't stop watching. It was just so
like you just can't look away, can you?
It was so intense but so enjoyable at the same time. It was one of those things where I was like, I think my legs were like physically shaking throughout, but I was just kind of like still engrossed, wanting to more.
We're getting a review from Dusk Till Dawn in this series, whether you fucking wanted them.
I think we'll have to do it as a special. I think I would love to have that kind of reaction to it, but I just
maybe a commentary. I don't know, maybe.
Maybe I will. For some reason I'm just not enamoured with it. I don't know why. Just not a big fan of the genre, but hey ho, I'll try again someday and maybe I will love it. Back to Pulp Fiction again. Just for some reason it's just never been a great big, I've never kind of watched it as many times as I have the others. And rectified that today by watching it a few more times. So that's pretty good. There's so many classic moments. Dialogue is always quotable. Really memorable characters. I think for me, in all honesty, the high point of the series will probably be Kill Bill, which is just like my absolute, I love it. Just because the music and everything, all the homage to Asian cinema will be a big plus for me. But I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this film.
Yeah, I had a funny experience watching this, because I always view
Alan's funny stories. We were talking about that off air as well.
Yeah.
Every time anyone says funny experience or funny stories now, that's all I can fucking hear.
Alan's funny stories. This is funny stories.
Yeah, I'll just introduce my camp sidekick, Camp David.
Oh,
hello, Camp David.
Oh.
What did you have for lunch? Oh, mince.
Go on, what was your funny experience?
No, I think I've built this up too much now. No, basically, because
Give it back to me, minus the power pack.
Oh, God.
I've always viewed this film as probably his best, and I kind of, while I really enjoyed it, and I couldn't, again, as I always have, the thing about this film, it's so easily watchable. It's just enjoyable at every scene. You just engrossed in with it. Some things I thought, okay, I'm not sure about this and I'm not sure about that. But I was generally enjoyed everything. But I kind of thought, what does this all mean? Where's this all going? What's the point of this film? It's just kind of like a series of just like irrelevant, funny stories, and yet this is kind of lauded as possibly one of the best films of the 90s. I'm like, something's a bit weird here. This is just a little bit kind of doesn't seem quite right. I don't know whether I'm now becoming a pretentious wanker or.
To be honest, you are the furthest of the three of us from
I know,
a pretentious wanker.
But I just,
I'd skirt that line.
But when like with Tarantino, because he's so lauded as like essentially one of the best filmmakers around. You expect one of his most lauded films would actually have some substance, and I struggled to find any substance in the film whatsoever. And
there's actually more last week, because I don't think Tarantino's the type of person. I don't get this feeling that he would characterize his films as being anything particularly. They are just about the situations he presents. But it's quite easy to watch Reservoir Dogs and see themes and ideas. It's much harder with this film.
Yeah, I mean, you can get kind of you kind of like look at each story individually and say, okay, you look at the John Travolta and say that's about loyalty, or you can look at the Watch story and you can say, oh, well, that's maybe about like
That's
being
about
attacked.
how they desperately need a sundial.
Yeah, basically. But maybe it's like maybe it's about attachments from your past or something like that, like that. But it's, and I don't know what the fuck the Bonnie situation's about. It's like, oh, that one time when we accidentally killed someone and we had to, it's just. Yeah, it's just a lot of really irrelevant stories, and it's funny how it's lauded as this masterpiece, whereas.
But it's the slightest masterpiece you'll ever see, not in
Yeah.
running time, but in. I mean, with me with this film, I look at it and I think, well, it has almost by definition have to go. In my view, I mean, people can disagree, but it almost by definition has to go fairly high up the rankings because it is his most lauded film, but it's also it's one of his most iconic, probably his most iconic.
Quotable as well. I think it's
we've
probably...
got a film about 3/4 of the way through this series that is my favourite. You can probably guess which it is if you ever heard me talk on Tarantino before, but I'll hold back on saying what it is. But my favourite film has hardly any iconic moments in it. This film is stuffed with them, images and not ideas, but certainly sequences where you just go, that just looks amazing. That's a master filmmaker. But I've never found much to connect onto. I always used to say that the film was only really alive when Samuel L. Jackson was on screen. I take that back to a degree because the John Travolta, Uma Thurman stuff is pretty electrifying, actually. And so I really enjoy John Travolta in this film.
As have many men, Dave.
Yeah, sorry. We just before we started recording, Chris and I were chatting and we were riffing on this, and we kept coming out with stuff where we go shit, because I never prepare like lines or jokes, because you can tell when you deliver them they're not spontaneous. And the trouble is, because I said them before we hit record, I can't fucking say them again. So anyway, never mind. But yeah, John Travolta's really, really good in this. Uma Thurman, I've always had mixed feelings about, but there's actually a slight subtlety to her performance tonight I've noticed that we'll talk about when we get there. I'm not quite sure of her as a deliverer of Tarantino's dialogue, bizarrely, but we'll come to it. But my biggest problem with this film, frankly, is the Bruce Willis section. Because the Christopher Walken stuff is fantastic, and then the rest of it not so much. But
Walken's
the rest
brilliant
of it,
in whatever he does.
electrifying. Christopher Walken. Well, he's put. When you think that Up His Ass as an almost aside could almost be written for Christopher Walken's cadence.
Well, exactly.
It's just like you could not have cast that role in your
When I ever do impression, my go-to saying when I do impression of Christopher Walken is, and he Captain up his ass. That's always my go.
Literally.
Rather than the dark whisper of like, it's always that kind of like really go high pitched for a brief moment.
Every time he says up his ass as well, he says it with a slightly different inflection.
It's up his ass.
It's really great. But yeah. So yeah, I don't love it as much as I want to love it, but I recognise it as possibly the first line of Quentin Tarantino's obituary. When the time comes, this is what he will be remembered for, I think.
Yeah.
Rather than Max Owen.
Quentin Tarantino didn't play Max Owen.
No, but Walken, I mean.
No, sorry, we're talking about Tarantino.
I know, I'm just being joking.
Yeah.
Oh, you can just imagine like Christopher Walken, like gravestone, saying like, "Here lies Christopher Walken with a watch up his ass."
Yeah, definitely.
Long pause though, it would be an extra tall.
in his ass in capitals.
Yeah, with a watch and the gap to up his ass would be so big.
You'd need 2 headstones.
One for the watch and one for where it goes.
Yep, that's the one.
Well, what he didn't realise, it was actually a grandfather clock.
Shout out before we get into it. I mean, Becca keeps referring to the Kill Bill Volume 1 soundtrack, and I'm with her on that, actually. What his sort of career post-2003 proved, to me, in terms of his music choices, was that he had a much, much wider appreciation than I realised. Because Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Jackie Brown, they've all got soundtracks that come from the same basic place. but this was a step forward again. I've been in my car. This is the other thing about doing the Tarantino series. It's living with me outside of strictly prepping the podcast, because I've been driving around in my car. I've been driving to work with the Pulp Fiction soundtrack on this week, dipping into Kill Bill and some other stuff as well. But a shout out to that I'm sure we'll mention it as we go through, but the music choices, much more than Reservoir Dogs, are just perfect at every point. You just go, oh, that just suits that so nicely.
Yeah, he pretty much makes hits as well, doesn't he? Because like the dance scene with Travolta and Uma Thurman.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the artist, but that wasn't even a
Teenage Wedding, but I don't know what the artist was called.
Yeah,
You're right.
but the the artist itself, that wasn't a song he was known for.
No.
It's but now it's become synonymous now. Tarantino has put it in his film.
Even little things though, like and I didn't know this for years. I don't think I'd thought about it. It's not that I thought the opposite. It's that I'd not thought about it at all. Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon.
Neil Diamond song.
It's a Neil Diamond song.
Yeah.
And when you listen to the Neil Diamond song, it ain't like Red Wine or anything where you go,
It's not
shit.
even called Neil Diamond song, is it?
The popular, well, no, but what I mean is like when you think of Red Wine, people think of UB40, where Neil Diamond wrote it. But when you listen to his version, you're like, oh God, right?
Oh dear.
When you listen to Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon, it's really similar to the version used in this film anyway. I was really surprised he didn't use it. But the version in the film is Urge Overkill.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's always...
and it's similar. It is similar to Diamond's original version. So that's my excuse for playing Neil Diamond in my car this week.
He was cool once.
Yeah.
Sweet Caroline.
Yeah. As soon as another car comes by, quickly over the Pulp Fiction soundtrack. Yeah.
Quick, put on Radio 1.
Classical FM.
Down with the kids.
It all sounds the same, kids today. Anyway, shall we discuss this film non-sequentially?
Yeah, it's got a beginning, middle, and an end, but not in that order.
There are three basic stories in this film. The three basic stories are the Bonnie situation, the Gold Watch, and hang on, let me get them in the right order. Chronologically, they take place in the order of the Bonnie situation, Vincent Vega and Marcellus Wallace's wife, and the Gold Watch. That's the order. The order we get them in is a little bit of the Bonnie situation, just to start us off. Then we get Vincent Vega and Marcellus Wallace's wife. Then we get the Gold Watch. Then we get the rest of the Bonnie situation. So we finish the film with characters alive who actually died at some points in this film. But we'll get to all of that. So we're going to run through the film as it's presented to us, I think.
Yeah, so we start off and it's Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer in the cafe scene, which feels like, obviously, I imagine when you first watch it, you think, where the fuck are this? Where's this going? Like, who are these two? Where are they going to turn up in the film? Because they spend the entire film not being in it until the very end, until you're actually in the diner. It's like, oh shit, there they are.
Do you know what my first thought was?
What?
I know I saw Reservoir Dogs first, because my first thought was, thank fuck he's doing his own accent. Because Tim Roth's American accent in Reservoir Dogs, I don't know what he did in Lie to Me and some of the other films he's been in, I don't know. But in Reservoir Dogs, I thought his American accent was useless. But, of course, he's back to being himself here. And he's got this real impish presence. And it's perfect for a guy who's like, why not? Go on, let's just rob this place.
Why not?
I love that.
The conversation just flows, and you really do see the logic in why not rob diners?
Why are we robbing banks when they're really well protected? You come in here.
It's not even that. It's liquor stores where it's becoming really aggressive. It's becoming really more difficult, and it's like, oh, it's just getting.
Because they're owned by the families as well, so they don't want to give their stuff up. He's saying you got busboys in here paying like $1.50 an hour and things like that. Which sounds an exaggeration for any era, but what he's saying is people who aren't being paid shit aren't going to protect this place at all.
Yeah, and because it's all insured as well, they're not going to care. They're just going to go, yeah, here you go.
Yeah. One of the things that came out in the special features, because at the very end of this scene, Amanda Plummer lurches forward with her gun and waves it around. And they said they deliberately found the biggest handgun they could for Amanda Plummer just for the visual, and they were right to, because it really works. There's something about Amanda Plummer holding that gun. Yeah. But yeah, the gist is they want to just rob this place on a whim. They hadn't thought about it before they'd gone in. He might have. It might have been in his head.
Possibly, yeah, but it does run that way. I mean, one of the things I did think was like, is this Tarantino slightly showing off with the garçon means boy comment? In a way, it's sort of like say, look how intellectual I am. Like, I know a bit of French. It's like
that's
okay.
what won it the Palme d'Or. Look at that garçon. What I love, do you know what I really love about that though? And I don't know if it was directed or whether the actor just did it, but did you see Tim Roth's smirk after that said to him? He's like, look at that. It's great. So they're Pumpkin and Honey Bunny.
Yeah. Well, that's what they're called.
That's what
they call
that's
each other.
Names for each other. She calls him Pumpkin, he calls her Honey Bunny, and that's how they refer to each other all the way through the scene.
That's their names.
Yeah, that's their names. So she gets up and says, "Any of you fucking pricks move, and I'll execute every motherfucking last one of you." And the camera stops a few frames before her voice, which is just a little stylistic touch, and that's all it is. There's nothing to be read into it except it's really cool.
I always thought that
that's how this film can be described as cool. It is just cool all over.
I've always thought that it just feels like a natural thing because it cuts straight to the titles really. So it would feel like a little bit if it cut in mid motion that they had to freeze frame just slightly beforehand. That it would just feel natural, feel right. So,
but it's just this music choice. It's something Tarantino heard somewhere. Ended up writing a letter to like the artist who wrote it and just said, "I think you're a genius." But it's the sort of thing that if we were trying to assemble a soundtrack for this, we could look all week. We could look for a month and never find this.
Yeah, but it's what opens the soundtrack as well. You hear. I don't think you don't hear the entire scene, but you hear like
you hear the end of it.
The last bit.
Hear, everybody be cool. This is a robbery. It goes from there.
Any of you, and then it goes straight.
I've been listening to that all week. Not Neil Diamond, honestly.
Sure.
Yeah. So. So then you have the titles, which is of course is iconic. It does the thing which changes at the radio.
Well, it's the first time since the Superman credits where I wouldn't have given a shit if they were 4 times as long. No, I wasn't that bothered about the film starting. I was like, this is fine. Just keep going like this. Scene. Yeah. It's a big cast.
It's an amazing cast, actually, when you think about it.
We get a change of station and it cuts to Jungle Boogie afterwards, doesn't it?
Yeah, you get surprised the fact that Bruce Willis is in it, because I remember at the time it's like, you think, oh, Samul L Jackson, John Travolta, Bruce Willis? He's in this?
Well, yeah, he's the and Bruce Willis, isn't he? He's the last credit. He's the last acting credit.
Yeah.
All these people.
But
Bruce Willis.
He was a surprise at the time as well. He was like, oh, that's a surprise. I didn't know he was in this film as well.
I think they do.
It's kind of because he's obviously known for like Die Hard and is more kind of like an action man, as it were. Not the action man, but like typical within the action genre.
It's just a trademark down the front there.
Literally. But yes, you're not kind of. I would say it's not your typical Bruce Willis film.
No, I think that's fair to say. I've got. It's easy to look at Bruce Willis now. Perhaps we talk about it now. Actually, now Chris's favourite film in the world, Die Hard. Fully respect that. As much as I don't love it, as much as I want to love it, I get that. But the problem is we've got 5 Die Hard films now at the time of recording, soon to be 6, which is a really stupid idea. And beyond the first sort of film
and I
in a bit,
concur as well with what I hear of it.
No.
Really?
Yeah,
You do?
The new idea is terrible, but anyway, and it completely defocuses the importance of Nakatomi Plaza to the guy's career in. But anyway, he did. At the start, he's all right during Die Hard. At the start of Die Hard 2, he's all right as well. But through the rest of those films, John McClane is an utter piss pot. I don't like the guy at all. Even though I quite like Die Hard 3, he's a fucking asshole in it. And all Bruce Willis performances in recent years, to me, have just looked so lazy. I've seen him on things like Inside the Actor's Studio saying that he's been experimenting with doing less, which to me just seems like...
Can't be asked.
Can't be asked. In this case, in the case of this particular actor, because there's plenty of actors out there over the years like Steve McQueen who thrived on doing relatively little. The Bruce Willis I love was actually the light comedic one. Bruce Willis in Moonlighting, which was the 1980s sitcom he did with Sybil Shepherd, was really, really funny. And all the times he's done comedy in his career, whether the comedies have been good or bad, he's been like really, really charming in them. Bruce Willis in this film is sort of sat on the cusp. I don't quite know what to make of it, because when I look at him, all I can see is lazy, late era, can't be asked Bruce Willis. And there's no doubt he's got a frown on his face most of the way through this. But having said that, when the camera's focused on him, we'll come back to the actual stuff and his story in a minute. But when the camera is focused on him, I can see a flicker of something. But yeah, I think that's the problem. This isn't a typical Bruce Willis film, and I don't like Bruce Willis as much as most people do.
Yeah, I know. It seems to suit comedy better. I agree with you. I mean, I think we were talking about this before off there, and he's one of these people who's probably due a comedy revival. I think. I mean, right now he's got the Death Wish remake that's due to be coming out soon. And
that's going to be terrible.
That. Oh
I think we can say that with confidence.
Yeah, I mean, look, as a guy who really loves his action revenge / movies, I mean,
go and see it.
I'll watch it and I'll probably be entertained by it, but it'll mean absolutely fuck all. Like it would, compared to the original Death Wish, it just completely just misses the point whatsoever, and it's not going to revive his career one bit. He needs to do something different, and he just seems very tired, and he acts like arseholes during interviews, and it just.
I watch the guy sometimes and I think, well, most of us have to work for a living, and we end up in what we end up in. If we're lucky, we kind of quite like it. I'm very suited to what I do, but when you look at people who are multi-millionaires being assholes in interviews and that, I just feel like, get a fucking job you like, you wanker.
Yeah.
Or just
quit. Go and spend your money.
Yeah, or just go, quit or retire for 5 years. Take 5 years off.
Come back when you see a script you really fancy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just, I don't know how long ago.
He's reached that point in his career now, hasn't he?
He's relatively recently married, and by that, I mean any time in the last 5 years, I can't remember when. But he married again to a much younger woman, and he's got like a family, and you think, go and enjoy that. If you don't like doing this is on the cusp as a performance. I'm not quite sure. Sometimes I'll watch this and enjoy it, sometimes I don't. It's my least favourite part of the film, though, the Bruce Willis stuff.
Yeah, I suppose we'll get to it more. I think there was more. For me, that was just more about parts of the story and parts of how characters are that just rub you off the wrong way. It just feels a little bit.
I'd probably say the same. I think out of all the stories, this is it feels for me the most underdeveloped, if I can say that about a Tarantino movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I still enjoy it though, but I would have to say obviously the stuff with John Travolta or Christopher Walken.
But it's weird if you ask
other
me
stories.
If you asked me which my favourite part 5 years ago or a few years ago, I probably would have said this. The watch bit with Bruce Willis probably was, which is kind of weird.
The restaurant scene, I don't know. I'm gonna have to be a bit of a populist and.
Yeah, possibly. I mean,
it's so difficult because there are so many good set pieces. It's just like, oh, what do I choose?
Yeah, but my mind's changed now. It just seems like, oh, this is kind of there's parts of the watch.
Well, I mean, the point the point about writing is the Gold Watch story was written with Roger Avary, and he paid some money to Roger Avary to actually take his name off it. There's still a story by credit there, but Quentin Tarantino has the sole screenwriter credit now, where actually the Gold Watch isn't purely him. It's predominantly him, but it's not purely him. So it's no surprise to me that it's the bit that stands out, and I don't like it as much. Roger Avary, I'm trying to think what he's best known for. Killing Zoe?
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
With Julie Delpy, who I've had a thing for since I was about 15.
That's
I love Julie Delpy. Yeah, well, probably since Killing Zoe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Star of the wonderful An American Werewolf in Paris.
I need to see that. I haven't seen that in a long time. Oh dear.
What American Werewolf in Paris? No, you don't.
It's not good. It's really not good. But the Before trilogy is lovely. I like the Before trilogy.
Definitely.
But yeah. So we start with, obviously, we come out of the credits and we cut to Jules, which is Samuel L. Jackson's character, Jules Winfield, and Vincent Vega, brother of Vic Vega, who's John Travolta, and they're driving to an early sort of appointment in their black Reservoir Dog style suits, and they're chatting about Vincent's time in Amsterdam.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because it wasn't Samuel Jackson who chose having the cherry girl. Cherry girl.
No, that was an error. Tarantino, or in aid, I think it was literally Tarantino, because this isn't a massive budget film. It's higher than Reservoir Dogs. I think it's more along the 6 million lines. But I believe it was Tarantino directly who sent one of his aides to the store to get an afro.
Yeah.
And she came back with a jerry curl by mistake.
Oh.
So it was an error, but I don't think I think it's turned out to be a happy enough error. Having said that, if Samuel L. Jackson had been in this film all the way through with an afro, I don't think it would have been any less iconic.
No, but I remember like Samuel Jackson talking about it in saying that it kind of made more sense because it was that time of Eazy-E and NWA, and it was like the Jerry curl sort of style. It would have made more sense, for a black gangster dude to be rocking the Jerry curl look rather than the throwback fro 70s look. Which is kind of like an interesting point.
This film does have a timeless quality to it. It's barely dated. Even the bits where it has, like later on, where they've got to put on some casual clothes and they've got really shitty dated 90s t-shirts on. Well, that's not necessarily inappropriate because a lot of us have got things like that in the back of cupboards or something as rags or whatever. It's a pretty timeless film. The dialogue's okay here. The dialogue's better than okay. The dialogue's terrific here. They're just talking about... Now, the problem is, when people copied Tarantino in the year that followed, they thought the salient point to this dialogue was that it was irrelevant. Was that, like, well, you're driving to work, you're not necessarily chatting about the job, you'll be chit-chatting about fucking TV or whatever. Well, that's true, but the number of films that followed this that would have really long set pieces of piss-poor dialogue about something completely unrelated to the film. Here it sounds very natural. I have to say I've heard it too many times. I'm quite happy to skip past all this Amsterdam stuff at the start. Once they're talking about how you can go in and get a glass of beer, they're talking about the weed laws over there, and they're talking about how you can't get a quarter pounder of cheese because of the metric system.
Yeah,
and
the Le Bit Mac and all that. Yeah, I mean,
and Royale cheese. Yeah,
it's been quoted by probably every film student ever at some point. Like they all tried to redo this scene
which doesn't help it any in some respects, but when they get on to after that, they get on to the whole Mia Wallace thing, which is the first major story we get to. Vincent has been asked. Their boss is Marcellus Wallace, a big guy played by Ving Rhames, scary guy, and he's married to Uma Thurman's character Mia, and Vincent has been asked, i.e. told, to take her out and do whatever she wants for an evening. And Jules is basically trying to warn him that getting too close to Mia's not a good idea. And they're talking about Mia's not a good idea, yeah. And they're talking about how a former business, Antoine Rocamora, who was also known as Tony Rocky Horror, gave her a foot massage and Marcellus threw him out of a 4th floor window.
Don't mess with him.
And yeah, I think this kind of like they all talk about what the what possible reason was. Well, the rumor has it was over a foot massage, and Samuel Jackson going on the line of like, well, come on, that's a bit
you don't
excessive.
think that's excessive?
And,
it's not like eating her out or anything. It's in the same ballpark. Ain't no fucking ballpark.
It ain't the same fucking. They're not the same fucking league. It ain't the same fucking sport.
Are we debating whether a foot massage is the same as cunnilingus? I would never have expected to see in a mainstream film. And then he said, "Have you ever given a bitch a foot massage?" And it's like, what is it? He says, "I'm the fucking foot master."
That's the one.
And then it's like, "Have you ever given a dude a foot massage?" Fuck you.
See, there's some sort of joy of watching people just talk and especially debate things as well. That even if it's something that's completely silly and irrelevant, there's a kind of a joy.
It's the same at the diner later. The conversations between those two are brilliant.
And there's certain because the way Travolta plays it, he plays it part stoner, part just very aloof. Almost feels like he's a complete idiot. But when he just sort of like he breaks it down for him and just says, "Well, would you give me a foot massage?" He goes, "Fuck you." It's that kind of like little smile on his face. It's like is that we all kind of relate to that joy. We're like, yeah, we've won this argument now, haven't we?
Yeah, we've won the argument, and we're not leaving it there for a few minutes. We're going to carry on and just rub it in for a little while. I like that. It's really, really cool. John Travolta was a recast, actually. John Travolta was, at the time of this film being made, Quentin Tarantino's all-time favourite actor. Big
his
fan
first-
of Saturday
yeah.
Night Fever.
First choice for this role.
Big
wasn't
fan
he?
of Grease, but he was also a big fan of Brian. He was a big fan of Brian De Palma.
Yeah.
Brian De Palma was like his director in his teens, if you like. That he would, the new Brian De Palma's out, and he referenced the film Blowout as well, which I reckon. I'm always. I said this last week. I'm always a bit iffy about recommending films, and then people go and spend money on things. But if you've not seen Blowout, it's one of the best Hitchcock films Hitchcock never made.
Along with Black Swan.
Very like. I hate fucking Black Swan, but it's very like The Conversation as well, the Francis Ford Coppola film from the
Blowout's really
70s.
cool.
Both of those are really great. Blowout is all about sort of perceptions and what you think you're hearing versus what you're actually hearing. Similarly with The
Great, and
Conversation.
not to spoil it, but great ending, great closing
Yeah.
scene.
Great end. And think Enemy of the State, but not shit in Tony Scott. Right?
Or Tony Scott.
A good filmmaker making it. Brian De Palma at his peak, so really good stuff. But that always put him in mind. He originally wrote this role for the Vic Vega character. It was going to be Michael Madsen, and then he met with John Travolta, and apparently they sort of sat up most of the night, just like drinking and talking. I don't know if there were any massages involved. I don't know.
Foot massages.
And then he rewrote it to put a bit more sort of almost humour in it as well. And he actually said to John Travolta at the end of this film, I didn't realise I'd written a comedy. And I'm like, I think you were the last person to cue in, because this film is funny as fuck.
Yeah, I think there was this was like I think I mentioned it last week that Pulp Fiction was a film which he didn't realise he was making. Like, it came out different to how he intended. And I think part of that was, well, maybe the reason why he didn't realise he was making a comedy, which sounds really odd to me. But there's
How can you not know this is really funny?
I don't know. That's the thing. I mean, there's a scene in it later. We'll get to it later on. And I think it was a complete ad-lib from Travolta, which hats off to him. It's part of him being in the character. But was when he like that line, "I shot Marv in the face."
Oh, I shot Marvin in the
It's like delivered perfectly. Like you just
but not
said,
only that, completely superfluous as well, because he's
Yeah.
talking to Jules. You can see this guy's face.
it's almost as if like he's just spilt something on his lap. He's like, oh man, it just like.
Okay, so they get into the apartment, going back to the start of the film. So we're set up for the Mia Wallace story, which is coming a little later. And they go in, and it's somebody who's kind of ripped Marcellus off, we think. It's a group of fairly young lads, aren't they? They're all in
Yeah.
their 20s, I would say.
Yeah.
The guy who shoots at them is actually Alexis Arquette, who died fairly recently.
Well, yeah. Well,
That's sad.
didn't he look? He looks a lot like Jerry Seinfeld in here, though.
He does here, yeah. That could have easily been Jerry Seinfeld, couldn't
Yeah.
it? Thinking about it. Do you know, I've never thought of that before, but
Yeah.
it really does.
They really could have been.
But the guy who sat in the chair, who does most of the talking back to Jules, actually looks like, what's that guy from the John Hughes films in the 80s? The guy from Mannequin.
Andrew McCarthy.
Andrew McCarthy.
Spots
That's
into
it.
my brain.
He looks like Andrew McCarthy.
That's always seems to be a thing in Tarantino films, like sort of completely bummed, just lying on the couch, like stoner, completely lying.
I know. They're all eating breakfast. We've also got the start of the sort of Quentin Tarantino
Brand.
verse, if you like.
Typical
in that.
breakfast film.
Later on, we'll see Bruce Willis smokes, so does Mia, smokes red apple cigarettes. We see adverts for them on billboards in Kill Bill as well. A Big Kahuna Burger. That's not a real burger chain.
It's not a real brand.
That's a Tarantino brand. And they're all sat around eating burgers, and they've ripped off this case from Marcellus. We don't know if they had any intention of giving it back, but Jules and Vincent have been sent there to sort them out, kill them, frankly.
And you get the nice sort of like down there before about like not knowing how many people. It's just little sort of details that sort of you think actually you don't normally think about stuff like that. Like well, how many people could be there? I don't know, 5. Shit, we should have shotguns for this. And then even then, kind of thinking even though we can take, it's just a bunch of like whiny kids. They're still thinking like fuck. We need to be imitating as fuck. So we need we need to come in like looking like we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, but it turns out there's only like there's 3 of them. One of them is their guy, so to speak. I'm not sure what the relationship is. Whether he's like the one who came clean, I don't know. But Marvin,
No idea. We're never told, but Marvin
Yeah.
is just their guy inside the camp. You've got the guy laying on the sofa stoned who Jules shoots. That's that line from the trailer. I always thought this had a great trailer, and then I watched it again today, and it plays really cheesy now. But the one bit is where there's a break in the music, and you just get him saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, did I break your concentration?" That's still a great line.
It's a great line, but yeah, it's
and you've got Alexis Arquette
unnecessary.
hiding down in the kitchenette area.
Yeah, we don't see that till later on, though.
We don't see that till later, no, because we don't get that far here. We get as far as Samuel L. Jackson on this. What gives me pause is I keep thinking I must have seen this on video first, just logically. But then I remember how he commanded the big screen, so I must have seen this theatrically at some point. I've never seen screen presence like it in my entire life, even from Samuel L. Jackson, with the exception of Next Week. I think he's utterly dominant in Jackie Brown as well.
I think that's why he's so iconic.
Yeah, this is the role he'll be remembered for. But he was just as good in Jackie Brown, and there's more of him in it. But he just commands this screen, and you just like. It seems so simple, but it's just not. He's just puts a complete intimidation job on sort of Brett or whatever he's called.
Like the whole. I mean, you get a bit of like replay of True Romance about like, does he look like a bitch? I think if you just recycle your own shit. But yeah, it's partly sort of.
Yeah, but come on, Let's Get Rambling gets recycled across.
Yeah, again, you get it just becomes. You know, it just get engrossed in it. There is almost like a spell that you just. I think it's part dialogue, part of the performance of Samuel L. Jackson, just like ramping it all up, and you just like engrossed. You just can't take your eyes off.
And when he stood over him, going, "Say what again? Say fucking what again?" It's just like, shit. It is really good. Do they speak English in what?
Does he look like a bitch? What?
Incredible stuff. It really is. And then he goes into Ezekiel, is it 25:17? I've got to look that up.
Scene. It's like famous scene after famous scene after famous scene.
Slightly rewritten by Tarantino.
Just a little bit.
But the Path of the Righteous Man is Ezekiel 25:17. And again, in lesser hands, this could come out awful, couldn't it? Just some sort of fucking gangster trying to sound cool.
But these two guys,
well, it is, isn't it? That is basically what it is on the surface.
Yes, and he says that later. I thought it was just some shit to say. But the delivery just transcends almost anything else in the rest of the film.
Yeah. Well, it's like he's kind of like a preacher, isn't he? Because that's like sort of something that Travolta bounced off. It was the fact that he was like dead straight, almost like a preacher, or he knew where he was with Jackson's character, that allowed him his performance, because he was dead aloof with everything. He could kind of add certain little things. He can go here and go there, with little lines of little sort of things you don't really think of, like sort of like we talk about. Yeah, but bacon's good, pork chops taste good. Like not something you don't necessarily think. Oh, actually, it's a bit different. You didn't necessarily think that. It just allowed Travolta to kind of play with that character a little bit, because he's so aloof, that how Jackson is so bombastic and straight with his performance. It's kind of cool. But yeah.
And they need each other. The thing is, as we go through the film, Travolta's a lot more vulnerable without Jules around.
Well, yeah.
He really is.
Yeah. he needs Jules there to keep him straight and focused and everything else.
Wingman kind of style.
Yeah. Absolutely. So this section of the film just ends on them like shooting the room up, effectively. And that's it. We cut away to...
we cut to Bruce, don't we? We get like a quick scene with Bruce and...
music check. We've got Let's Stay Together playing over this section.
Yeah.
Plays from the movie. What a fucking song that is. That's going to play over... If YouTube allow it, it's playing over the trailer to this show.
Maybe we can have like 10 seconds of it or something. Fair use policy.
Yeah. Well, YouTube don't seem to understand fair use policy at all.
No, but we can try.
But we will be using that. If not, I'll go with Dusty Springfield. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
That's playing over this, which again is not the intuitive choice, because you've got a big gnarly guy talking to a big gnarly guy, and you've got quite a romantic song playing over it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah, he's basically paying him off, isn't he? It's the...
Being paid to take a dive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a boxer who best years are behind him.
Yeah.
At this point, Bruce Willis would have been 38, 39, something along those lines, which is worrying because that's younger than me now. But anyway, He's being paid off. Effectively, they're going to bet very heavily on him losing. So he's being paid to make sure that happens in the 5th round. It's a long monologue without us seeing Marcellus's face. We just see the back of his head occasionally, but for a large part of this monologue, we don't even see that. It's just Bruce listening.
And again, like Ving Rhames is one of those actors you think he's probably been in he's probably been in another Tarantino film, but he hasn't.
No.
Again, he's not one of those people who kind of like suits that kind of world, you know.
I'm amazed he's not been in another Tarantino film. How was he not one of the Hateful Eight or something?
Yeah, or Steve Buscemi. Like there's a part that Tarantino plays later on. I think, how is this not Steve Buscemi?
It should have been. Steve Buscemi's got a cameo in the most pointless place as well, but we'll come to it.
Yeah, it's very weird.
So he's being paid to take a dive. At the same time, or towards the end of this speech, it's a long monologue from Marcellus about overcoming his pride, and he was close but he didn't make it, and you know all the rest of it. Jules and Vincent walk in basically kind of beachwear.
That's really weird.
We don't know why at this point. They turn up for a meeting with their boss dressed in, like, I don't know, t-shirts and shorts.
Randomly.
And there's a little bit of a square up between Vince and Bruce Willis, but for Vince and Butch.
Bruce goes to the bar. This is the arrogance of the Vincent character, that he wouldn't have done that but for the fact that Marcellus is in the room, I think. And he's there to see Marcellus, so inherently, I'm with Marcellus. I can say and do what I like. He goes to the bar, Bruce, to buy Red Apple cigarettes. First mention of it during this film. And he says, "What are you looking at, friend?" And he says, "You ain't my friend, Palooka." What did you say? And it's like, I think you heard me just fine.
He calls him Punchy as well.
Calls him Punchy. And you think, well, given what later happens to John Travolta in this film, it doesn't do him any favours.
No.
But that's the end of that bit, isn't it? So we've been introduced to the gold ring story. We've been introduced to the Bonnie situation story, or the very start of it. And then, obviously, Vincent goes over and gives Marcellus a hug, and they go about whatever their business is. And we fade out on Bruce looking just past the camera, and then we cut to the first major complete story, which is Vincent Vega and Marcellus Wallace's wife.
The first opening scene is basically him buying drugs from
Marty McFly.
from not Marty McFly.
Yeah.
He really isn't Marty McFly.
And desperately seeking Susan.
Oh yeah.
Which means there's 2 Arquettes in this film.
Fun fact, folks.
Haven't really thought about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he goes to buy. He's shooting up heroin.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's really seeking.
Well, you've got basically Eric Stoltz, his girlfriend, who's Rosanna Arquette, and her friend,
obviously,
who's the least attractive of the singers from The Commitments, and was also in the opening scene of The Phantom Menace.
Yes, of course he was.
Yeah, Brona. Is it Brona Gallagher? I think it is.
Yes, that sounds about right.
So she's gone there to his place just to buy some heroin. He's introduced to all these different brands, chooses one, shoots off. No, he didn't do that. At no point did John Travolta shoot off at Eric Stoltz's house.
Imagine like the $6 Million Man.
Any distress caused to John Travolta or his family is regretted by Do You Expect Us to Talk? And we're
grave apologies, everybody.
No, he shoots up the heroin and then drives to this date against black and white rear projection, which kind of looks really cool.
Yeah, I didn't notice this before. I mean, he used it a couple of times in this film.
Yeah, well, if it had been on a wider angle, it would have looked terrible, because you've just gone, why have you done that? It's very subtle. It's a close-in shot.
And the whole scene just... it's very, romantically done, isn't it? Very, sort of shooting up the heroin, while seeing John Travolta just sort of, just gurning at the screen, almost,
He does pull a bit of weird.
If you haven't seen Pulp Fiction, anyone listening, I promise you he doesn't gurn.
He does pull some funny faces, though. He isn't obviously probably gurn, but he does pull some funny faces.
But, he's like... But he does that thing where his mouth is sort of wide shut, and he's kind of he's almost like pouting, but it's you tell his teeth are kind of sort of click together, It's really unusual face he's pulling off.
It's very easy to watch him as a slightly stoned or a second banana in most scenes he's in. John Travolta's outstanding in this film, and it's taken me years to see it. But yeah, he heads off to the date, which is basically picking her up at home. She's in some sort of, well, she's presumably in a bedroom or something, but she's got like an intercom with the living room. And it's all like close-ups of her lips and things like that, and later on her feet.
It sort of creates
It's kind of seductive,
mystique,
actually.
doesn't it? I think about her.
Yeah, she's really seductive, and it's
It also kind of shows that she's kind of watched and kind of, I was gonna say like protected, but not really.
That security there would probably be for her benefit, yeah.
Well,
benefit
definitely.
and trapping. But she's the music at this point is "Son of a Preacher Man" by Dusty Springfield, which is just
I do love
perfect.
this scene. It's absolutely perfect. It's just really iconic. The costumes that she wears are just brilliant. The music, decor, and
of course, she walks out in time with the music as well.
Yes, she does, exactly.
Close up.
Actually, this is one of my favourite scenes in the whole film.
Yeah, because you still haven't seen her whole face.
No, exactly.
And it stops because it's a close up on her feet. It is Quentin Tarantino after all. And then we stops and she kind of like lifts one foot up to her toes and just says, "Let's go." It's just like really perfect
cool.
physical acting.
You automatically know who she is just by just seeing little bits of her face.
I think also she's there to be demystified at this point as well, because she's the gangster's wife. We've barely seen the gangster, and now we're not seeing her except these sort of seductive red lips and that.
You don't ever, even though they're husband and wife, you don't see them together. They don't share a scene. I don't think.
Once, I don't know.
Once, yeah, one time.
They're on that sort of garden patio table at one point when he's on the phone.
Oh yes.
But they're not talking to each other.
Like blinking, you miss it. No, they don't. I was saying they don't.
Don't they kind of like, aren't they in the same scene at the Butch fight? Where they
I think they are. When he goes in, she's there, isn't she?
But it is briefly though. I don't know whether it's intentional or not, but you do not get any sense that like they are the conventional husband and wife. There's no nothing about that relationship that makes any sense whatsoever.
Well, I did wonder, as much as we've talked to there being no themes, I do wonder how much thought was given to this. That we can infer how big or not a gangster he is from Mia, because she wasn't a big star. She was kind of a failed actress, which kind of maybe, if that's the trophy he can get, then he's kind of a mid-level gangster.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. But they go out, there's a deleted scene between them leaving the apartment and them arriving at Jack Rabbit Slim's, which I love. I'll get on to Jack Rabbit Slim's in a minute.
Well.
But they pull up and she says, an Elvis guy like you, da-da-da-da-da, don't be a, and she draws a square. The Elvis guy is the deleted scene. Did you see the deleted scene, folks?
I haven't watched the deleted scene, though.
Okay, there's a deleted scene where she's...
Oh, you talking about which guy are you? Are you an Elvis guy or a Beatles guy?
That's right.
The
theory that you're one or the other.
Yeah.
Deep down, you can like both, but you're one or the other. And obviously he says he's an Elvis guy, which is Tarantino's answer as well to that question. Yeah. And so that's why she says when you pull up an Elvis guy like you, that's from the deleted scene. But it's not a big deal because he's kind of a bit Elvis-y in his stylings anyway, so it works. But the first thing I noticed tonight when they go into Jack Rabbit Slim's is there must have been... This is almost like House of the Blue Leaves, in that there's a really long Steadicam shot and there's so much detail in every frame. I think there's, for what is relatively throwaway, there's a lot of love gone into the making of this section of the film. They've gone into this diner, which Tarantino will have designed from scratch with somebody.
I always think about when you do long shits like that. You always think of Scorsese and Goodfellas, don't you?
Yes.
You always think of that setup of.
But Tarantino's all-timer is The House of the Blue Leaves, in terms of Steadicam shots. There's a really long Steadicam shot when the bride first gets there, from her getting changed right the way round the whole building to the 5, 6, 7, 8's playing. And just to give you an idea of geography and where everyone is. So it's probably a more important scene in that film than the one is here, because it's just giving you flavour. Had we cut to them just sat at a table, the scene would have played out the same, but it's just extra flavour. The Goodfellas ones trumps it all. That's one of the best Steadicam shots you'll ever see.
Oh, yeah, just in cinema generally.
Yeah.
Though I must say, it does annoy me slightly how she says, "Don't be a square," and then draws a rectangle.
Yeah, don't be up square. But yeah, Make your mind up. Square or rectangle? Bloody hell.
No, well, oh, what you mean that she drew the wrong shape?
Yeah, she draws
Yes, it's square, but
she
then
draws
she
a
draws
rectangle.
a rectangle. Well, it's kind of rectangular.
Don't be a rhomboid.
Don't be a dodecahedron.
I don't care. I don't like it particularly anyway, but the fact is he is off his tits, and so is she, so fair enough. That's the other thing, she's snorting quite a lot of cocaine.
Yeah.
But she never eats that cherry.
She doesn't, that's kind of seductive, her eating that cherry. But anyway, so she keeps going off to take more coke. He's off his tits anyway. And it's just them sitting down in the diner, and this is where I don't know what to make of her delivering his dialogue. Because it reminded me of that scene in Death Proof when they sat around talking about Vanishing Point. And for all the world, it might as well have been 4 Quentin Tarantino sat there. It's the same here. I've never been quite sure. It's a little bit overdone. But having said that, that blast of confidence is slightly bracing to him. He doesn't quite know what to do with it. He's not taken out a little gangster's mole. He's taken out this really confident woman who he's a bit beguiled by.
Yeah, he's not quite sure what to do.
Yeah, we get a bit of talk about like, this is kind of like a waxwork, like about the place, and she shows like a $5 shake.
It's a waxwork with a pulse, he said.
Yeah.
Orders a $5 shake. I don't know how big a deal that would be now, but this is 1994, don't forget. And he does address the Tony Rocky horror throwing out of the window bit.
Yeah, that happens as a bit down. They go to the bathroom. They talk about uncomfortable silences. Yeah, so there's a little bit of that's it's like, oh well, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and when I come back, and there's little sort of talk about that, and yeah, then he comes up with the idea about at first he kind of shows off his knowledge of pop culture of talking about like how you can tell like difference between Marilyn Monroe and someone else. I don't know.
I can't remember if was it Jay Mansfield.
It could well be, yeah. Let's say that.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, so and so must have the night off."
But the guy serving them is Buddy Holly, played by Steve Buscemi.
Well, yeah.
What a waste.
Wait, it should
Why is he in that? I don't get
this
it.
should have been Quentin, because it's like
It really should have been his cameo.
it should have been his Hitchcock type cameo.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants words, fair enough. But this would have been fine. You've only got to take an order.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, I will slightly... I never thought I would do this, because he's absolutely dreadful in it, but I will slightly defend his Jimmy performance later. But we'll get to it. But yeah, I think the casting's the wrong way around. Steve Buscemi should have done that.
Yeah. I mean, I think what it was he was going to do one of the dressing gown performances. So if it wasn't going to be Jimmy, he offered it to Eric Stoltz. So which one would you rather do? Do you want to do Jimmy or do you want to do?
So he could have been his dealer.
Yeah. So basically, if Eric Stoltz said I want to do Jimmy, then it would have been Quentin Tarantino as the dealer.
I think Eric Stoltz would have done a better job of delivering the line "dead nigger storage." But
let's face it, anyone would do better.
Jimmy role is easier to fuck up. Actually, I think he would have. I don't know. It is what it is now. It doesn't massively damage the film, but like, it's an acting bum note when you've got Steve Buscemi in a nothing role on the set. You might as well have used him.
I'm with that. I'm just think I think Eric Stoltz suits the drug dealer role perfectly, and every time I see Jimmy, I think, why is this not Steve Buscemi? I know. I've never thought about it, but the moment you mentioned it, I was like, you're so right.
They do the big is it not Charleston? I'm thinking of It's a Wonderful Life, isn't it? They do the big dance contest.
Yeah. So they do the. Yeah, first you have the dialogue about...
That's another kind of like oft-imitated scene.
Yeah. Well, first you have the dialogue about what actually happened, so they kind of like set the record straight. There's a little bit of a nice sort of element of like, oh, there's a bit of gossip between gangsters kind of thing, which I kind of like the idea, the fact that they just sort of... They like stuff to talk about. But we never really know why, Tommy Rocchiora got thrown out of a window.
Yeah. It might well be true. But
no, well, it is true. But it's like because she kind of like no one really knows why Marcel's through.
But the nightmare of this sort of night out is he's been sent out with an extremely attractive woman who is then much more than he was ever expecting in terms of personality and everything else. You can see he's a bit beguiled by her, but not in a cheesy Hollywood way. He's just taken by the fact that she talks so well. But then she says, I want to dance and I want to win that trophy. And it's like, what? The thing is, on a night out like that, whatever she fucking says, you have to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, they end up dancing. And I remember two things I think about when I think about this scene. Firstly, how much it dominated the press at the time the film was being made. That there was a follow-up to Reservoir Dogs and John Travolta. The big deal was John Travolta was going to be dancing again on screen. Bear in mind Saturday Night Fever, etc.
Yeah, that was a great big kind of talking point.
The other thing I think of is when you see a series of stills, but you see them in quick succession, so they almost become like a moving picture. There are stills from behind the camera of them filming this scene. And what I love is Quentin stood by the camera dancing with them. And I just love that most directors sit kind of immobile in their chairs and watch the monitors. Quentin actually fucking acts the film out with them. And apparently,
he gets in there and kind of shows them how he wants it done.
13 hours they spent filming this, and Quentin
He's
was
very
on
on
his
hand,
feet dancing around as well at the same time.
Well, apparently in Kill Bill, he's like, there's shots of him like she dressed depending on what the scene was. So it was like stuff at the hospital. He's in like a surgery get-up, he's that all like he's dressed accordingly apparently to the scene. He's like,
right, okay,
which is kind of like a bit, and then I mean, I'm not sure if he kept that up for the following films or not. I mean, I know that I've seen the shots of him like dressed as a cowboy, but I don't know if that's because he was actually in that scene or not. Or I don't know.
I don't know. But it was just lovely to see him so enthusiastic. And the thing is, what a cue to get from your director. That, you're filming this thing over 13 hours, and every time you look past the camera, he's there, big smile on his face, doing what you're doing with you, or at least kind of going along with what you're doing. But I just remember that. But yeah, they definitely bond over that, because when they next go, the next scene is them getting back to her place, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they're still kind of dancing and pissing about and stuff. And there's a little bit of romantic tension now, which obviously Travolta's character addresses.
Yeah, they have like it's like, is that what you call an uncomfortable silence?
Yeah.
And
he goes to the bathroom and he's talking to himself, and I love this, where he stood there going, this is a test of sweet oneself, and you'll go home, jerk off, and
you'll drink your drink quickly, not rude.
Don't be rude.
not too quick, but quickly.
But we've all been in variations of this situation. I don't mean Somebody's Wife or Gangsters, but we've all been in situations where you're like, I'm getting carried away and I mustn't make any kind of move here. I don't know if I've ever gone and talked to myself about it in the bathroom, but yeah. So I kind of fell for him here, but at the same time, she sat down by his coat and finds some drugs in his coat pocket.
Yeah, she finds heroin.
Thinks it's cocaine. They are different colours. I'm a bit confused by that. But anyway, she snorts it anyway and immediately ODs. Because effectively she's had a speedball now, which is extremely dangerous.
Yeah, I always kind of grossed out, like, anything sort of spit and blood mixed together.
Vomit
just makes me feel a bit... There's just a combination of, of spit and blood on screen that makes me go...
Anyone being treated at the Northwest hospitals in coming years, if there's no nurse about, Chris is like, ugh. I'll wait for that to clean that shit up.
I'll be offering a tissue at a distance.
That's so weird. You being a nurse and obviously not.
No, I'm not. No, I'm joking. It's a different story when it's in real life, but on screen.
It is, of course.
On screen. Do you know, I've got a real thing on screen. I don't like seeing the vomit come out of somebody's mouth.
That's a bit gross.
When you find her and there's vomit coming out the side of her mouth, I'm all right with that. But when you get scenes in a film where someone vomits, I always think, why have you shown that?
It's gross.
We don't need to see that.
What do you think?
And yet,
that comes to mind.
And yet, I can watch the most absurd violence without problems.
It's like the Mr. Creosote in Is It Meaning of Life?
Right.
It's hilarious, utterly hilarious, and really famous scene. but I just think it's just it's so disgusting.
But I'm talking any film, not necessarily gross out films. I mean, I'm thinking of something like The Judge, that Robert Downey Jr. film, where that lawyer played by Dak Shepard. At one point, he's nervous and vomits on the side lawn outside the court. But you see the vomit come out of his mouth.
Ooh.
There's no fucking need.
No.
He could have literally just bent over and you go, well, he's going to throw up, isn't he? But there you go.
What do you think of Team America with the puppet pharmacy?
Yeah, that does get a little bit. It's funny.
It's
but
not
then
as erotic as the Golden Shower.
or the puppet sex scene.
Oh, that sex scene was so...
Again, that's done purely because it's overkill and because it's so absurd because he's a puppet.
But yeah, no, she's sick, and of course,
all those two old grannies from Little Britain, where they puke at everything that's kind of not white or not British, and it's like, oh, what the hell? That's really old. That's not really not a Down with the Kids reference.
It's no Simpsons
or South Park.
No.
What's the most recent one I can think of? I can't.
If you can think of any up-to-date, hip and Down with the Kids vomiting scenes, please write to us and expect us to talk at gmail.com. Yeah, so in panic, he rushes her straight to his dealer, which is just an addled mind. You know, back in the day when I was a student, you know, if one of my colleagues had been taken sick, I wouldn't have rushed him to like some alley up round the corner. Rush him to a flat in Highton.
It does smartly justifies it in a way. It is like Travolta in a state of panic, but over the dialogue with him and the drug dealer, it is kind of justified. So I can't just take it to the hospital, and so if I can't do that, and I have to keep this on the low because otherwise I'll be fucked. You have to help me, and then like if she dies, I'm gonna have to force her to tell the Messiahs that you refuse to help me.
Yeah.
So it kind of justifies it to a degree. It's like, you're the only guy I know who would know how to deal with this.
There's a real ticking clock to this as well, because she's OD'd. You know, like, she's dying. Her brain's dying. She's not breathing or anything. They've got no time here. We don't even know how far he's had to drive with her to get there. And they're going to do an adrenaline shot to the heart. I don't know the validity of this. I don't know if there's anything in this in reality. But it's a really good scene. It's really tense. The only bit I hate is after she sits up and Rosanna Arquette goes, "That was really fucking trippy," and I'm just like, yeah, that's a guy trying to find dialogue from some people who were like from
stoned.
A different generation from his own. It didn't really work.
I guess. I mean, it works well enough. The fact that they're stoners, so they would just be like, "Whoa," you know, about anything.
Yeah. I think the problem is I don't think Rosanna Arquette is, and I think it shows that she isn't.
What, stoner?
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think basically Quentin should have cast a complete drugged up mess in this role.
Yeah, but there's like, you know, she's smart mouth. She's like, say something, and then they go home and she tells
the Fox.
She tells.
We haven't mentioned Fox Force 5, have we?
No.
Fox Force 5, when I said she was a failed actress, she did a pilot for a show called Fox Force 5, which was like 5 crime-fighting women.
It's basically kind of a reference to X-Men as well, isn't it? Because Fox Force 5 was another kind of famous Marvel-esque
I think it
alias
is, yeah.
or something. Because I think
it
is. There's one, like something to do with, is it her name? Like
I forget what her name is, but her specialism is knives, which is quite amusing.
And we'll see that again in Kill Bill.
Kill Bill is 2 films later, and it's the same sort of deal. But she finishes.
It's all in the same universe, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's the movie universe.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks' time. But you've got we talked about it a little bit last week, but we'll refer to it again in a couple of weeks' time. But you've got she was supposed to finish every episode with a joke. He was trying to get her to tell him the joke, and it got all a bit built up, so she didn't. And it was wonderfully like how real people talk. Like, you built it up now. I can't say it now. And it's a real joke. It's a real shit joke about a tomato being squashed. Catch up. Shit.
Oh dear.
Well, she looks really washed out. The makeup job on her is great.
No, yeah, she does look really terrible in this. I'll say the makeups and the costume is the makeup and the costumes are amazing.
They really are. And of course, when she goes inside, he blows a kiss at her, and that's a lovely shot.
Fantastic.
Ruined by the fact that he probably goes home and has a wank. But
I don't think about that part so much.
Do you not? Imagine it, Becca. John
Let's try not
Travolta
to.
keeping a nice rhythmic pace.
I just imagine Travolta's cum face must be like.
Bloody hell. Cannot unsee.
Go on, Chris, you were describing his cum face. What do you reckon it looks like?
I don't know.
All right, fair enough.
Sweatier than his normal face.
He's normally behind you, isn't he, Chris?
What would Darby say to all this?
He just wishes them a nice honeymoon.
That's when he children's for it.
Yeah, I know it is.
No,
But there was nothing in his dialogue that fitted, so I had to steal it.
no.
Yeah. But he did offer cream and sugar, so.
So then we, I don't know why that was really camp, wasn't it? So then we cut to the Gold Watch story. We cut straight to a young boy watching TV in what looks like probably the 60s. Late 60s, it looks like. And given what it's Vietnam, I would think that's right. And in walks his mother with Christopher Walken. Introduces Christopher Walken, who kind of crouches down in front of the boy and tells him a story.
Yeah, and it's basically Christopher Walken talking for 2 minutes.
But
Which
it's
is like
mesmerising.
one of the greatest 2 minutes ever committed to cinema.
About assholes.
And watches.
Yes.
It's an interesting story, actually, when you think about it.
Chris's funny stories. This is all about this watch that's been in Butch's family. Butch, the little boy, will grow up to be the Bruce Willis character. And this watch has been in generations of this family and gone off with the incumbent owner of that watch at any given time to various wars through the century, like World War One, World War Two, and now Vietnam. And the watch is sacrosanct. This story tells us this watch is sacrosanct. Whatever's going to happen to you, protect that watch. It's your family's right.
Hence, hide it up your...
So the whole story is about them hiding it up their ass for like 2 or 3 years and having dysentery and stuff. It's just lovely.
Yeah, there's something about watching Christopher Walken. I mean, again, Christopher Walken's another one of those actors think, I wish he was in more Tarantino movies, because... Again, it's just Christopher Walken is just like commands the screen, even though it's...
Again, he could easily have been the Bruce Dern character in The Hateful Eight.
I was trying to think who the Bruce Dern character isn't in Hateful Eight, but yes, you're right, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, I wish he'd been in more as well, but I suppose there's finite characters. And the thing is as well, we got to remember it isn't just about us. Tarantino wants to work with certain actors. I mean, the talk for his next film, there's talk of like Tom Cruise and stuff like that. And you think, well, if he does indeed want to work with Tom Cruise, he's had like 7 or 8 shoots, complete film shoots now, with no Tom Cruise there. So Tom Cruise might end up in a role that we think, wouldn't that have been great had it been? And we name someone he's worked with before. I suppose part of it is he needs to get through the people he wants to work with as well. It does annoy me that he's worked three times with Michael Madsen now, who I don't rate, when there's all these really great actors he worked with once. But yeah, it is what it is.
It's more, I think with Madsen it's more of a friend thing, isn't it, really? I guess. It's more, because there's a lot of like thing about trust with Hateful Eight, but I suppose we'll get to that later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then we hear the ding ding.
Yeah, he's woken up. He's basically reliving that in a dream before this fight that we've seen him agree to throw.
Yeah.
And then we cut to outside with a very realistic cab driver waiting.
Not wearing any shoes.
Cab drivers are always wet dreams, aren't they?
Yeah, they're always like Eastern European, whatever the fuck.
Big full lips.
Yeah.
Butch.
You just...
What?
And like I just again, this is one of my problems with this bit, and I didn't realise there was much of a problem, but I never really connected with this. I've always kind of treated this scene as kind of like a downtime for the rest of the film, where I'll just switch off a bit. But this scene is fucking odd. Like, I don't know where the fuck this is going with this shit.
It is very strange, isn't it?
Like,
it's just things like, it's just Bruce Willis. I don't find the guy very likable. She says, "So what does your name mean?" "I'm American, honey. Our names don't mean shit." And it's like, well, that's actually a good line on the page, delivered like a misanthrope. It's just, she's just asked an innocent enough question, and you sounded really a bit of a prick answering that.
I just wonder, like, where the scenes, what we got, like,
It's a pointless scene. Well, no, it isn't actually, because it's exposition. It tells us what's just happened.
Yeah, he finds out over the radio that he's actually killed a fighter. He's like, oh, shit. Which adds something. That's the only poignant moment in the scene. But the rest of it, I'm just thinking, I don't believe for 1 second she's a cab driver, and there's nothing about the scene that's believable. She's asking really weird questions like, what's it like to kill a man? Literally seconds after he's found out. You know, it's just like, part of me is just like, what the fuck is going on here? I don't understand. Like, you know, she's not a character that turns up at all later on. There's no relevance to this whatsoever.
She's not even an Easter egg, is she? She's not mentioned in one of his other films or anything.
No.
It's a bit nothing. It stylistically looks all right, and there are extended versions of this. One of the deleted scenes is an extended version of this. But I think that's my problem with this storyline altogether. I was quite interested to see him at the start of the film, and the whole bit about you have to throw the fight. Nearly everything that's coming in the Gold Watch. Oh, and I love the Christopher Walken stuff. But nearly everything that comes from now on, I don't like. I don't like at all.
I like parts, because what happens next, I mean, when he drops off, he meets his girlfriend.
Let's say girlfriend. They're involved. So yeah, his girlfriend.
And again, this is another female character here that is just, she's annoying for starters, and they kind of bring up even bad traits in Bruce Willis's character. There's nothing about this relationship that is just like, that makes me kind of want them to win. There's not great
warmth there. He talks quite warm occasionally, but he talks quite patronising because she's kind of childlike.
Yeah, that's just
not in a physical sense, by the way, for anyone who's not seen it. She's clearly a fully grown adult woman, and I'm not suggesting she's like developmentally delayed or anything. There's just something in the way she talks that's just so painfully childlike and naive, and he responds to it by talking to her like a slow child.
Yes, I mean, it's partly maybe because she's like from a different country, so maybe like a language barrier that might be part of it. But then there is, it does get pushed a bit too much, really, and it just, you know, and there's part where he calls her a retard, and he kind of like, and it's just...
You didn't like that, Becca, by the sound of it. That sort of struck a chord at the time, did it?
Yeah, not a fan.
I was
gonna say, this scene is probably not my favourite. But, it's weird. I don't.
Yeah, that's just it, Becca. It's just weird. You just don't feel. I mean, like, I understand. I mean, I'm not very PC, so it wasn't the fact that they said the word. It was the fact that he went like, he sort of start mimicking someone, like, well, you know, where it's just. Well,
exactly, that's it. It's not obviously. PC book and everything. It's not the language used, even though I don't agree with it anyway. But the language that he uses is right for his character. But yeah, why would you? To me, this, in terms of like the rest of the film, in terms of like the narrative choices that it makes and the whole stories that you follow throughout the course of the film, this to me sticks out like a sore thumb. It's like, why?
Yeah,
you belong in a different film. What are you doing there?
Well, no, I just think it's really poorly done. Really, I don't buy their relationship whatsoever. I don't really.
I would agree, Chris.
And he's an immediate. I mean, basically, because they know that he's going to be. He's obviously decided he ain't throwing this fight. He can't bring himself to do it. Then I suppose that does tie in with all the family pride and family heirlooms and all that kind of thing. He's obviously got some pride in the family name, you know, and stuff like that. So he knows he's not going to. So he gets her to meet him at a motel and pack what stuff they need. They're basically going to skip town because he knows he's going to be a marked man after this. Marcellus is a killer. So she packs up, and when he's going through stuff, the watch isn't there. She's managed to leave the watch back at their apartment. And whilst we are sold that watch matters to him, his reaction, given we've had a total absence of anything to soften this character for us, the viewer, just makes him seem like the pig he is, to be honest. Hence, why would I care what happens to him?
The thing is just totally confused, because I believe why he'd be pissed, but then, well, for starters, I think, well, if it matters that much, why didn't you have it with you? You had a bag full of your own clothes.
Well, if it's been up people's asses, you can keep it in your fucking glove at a push.
Yeah, you know, if it's that fucking important. I mean, he does apologise to us, so I never I never expressed how important that what was meant to me, which kind of expresses well how long you've been in a relationship with this person. Because fucking hell, like maybe it's a feelings thing, but you don't express how you feel a lot. But But again, it's just So
it says a lot about this scene that you're all making like really good observations, and it's like good conversation and everything else. But mentally, I'm thinking spin on, because I don't like this sequence much. So I'm like, come on, where do we go next?
It's just past it.
It's basically all set up to him having to go back to his part where he doesn't want to go, essentially.
For some Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts, oh my god. It's a very 90s thing, Pop-Tarts, isn't it?
I don't know. I've never had them. Had them in my life.
Yeah, they're overrated.
If you enjoy Pop-Tarts, write to us at expectustotalk@gmail.com.
I've actually eaten a Pop-Tart. It was very sweet. I wouldn't advise it.
And tell
if
us
you
what
find
your
Pop-Tarts
favourite...
too sweet, write to us at expectustotalk@gmail.com.
Alternative, you don't give a flying monkeys. Send an email to expectotalk@gmail.com.
Send us your favourite flavour of Pop-Tart, and of course, if you want to send us Pop-Tarts, please send it to
This
P.O.
podcast
Box.
is not sponsored by Kellogg's Pop-Tarts in any way, shape or form.
Jazz Tarts. Classic
Pardon?
tarts.
That's a different thing entirely, isn't it?
Jazz Mags.
You've lost me now.
So he goes back to the apartment, and this is where Vincent is fucking useless without Jules. He's gone to the toilet and left his gun on the counter.
Yeah, well, you get that first, obviously another, steady cam shot which follows Bruce as he walks to his apartment.
Just less memorable because I forgot it was a steady cam shot.
And so this is probably like my favourite bit of the film, because it's just so casual in terms of how he just pops into the apartment. You think, oh well, everything seems to be okay now. I'll pick up the watch. Oh, I'll get some pop.
I'll have a bit of breakfast.
Yeah,
like, what?
I'll get a bit of food because I probably won't get a chance before. And it's just casual glance of seeing an Uzi with silence and just
that's the problem. That's a lovely shot when he spots it actually and hears the noise from the toilet. But it's just Jules had some fucking brains. You know what I mean? We're now following the
Vincent.
Jules had some brains.
Oh, sorry,
not Vincent. We're now following the fucking mixed ability group. You know what I mean? I just don't like it. I just don't like any of this at all. And it gets worse because of what's coming next, which, for somebody who's very difficult to offend, upset, or anything, all the stuff that's coming in a minute, I just think that's completely fucking unnecessary in every single way. So, yeah, he shoots Vincent, which was a big thing with Travolta's agent. Because Travolta's agent was like, but he dies. And he says, yeah, but he's alive at the end of the film. But he heads back down. Where does he go next? Because he ends up on the street somewhere. Oh, he's driving, isn't he?
He's driving. Thinks he's got away with it. And I think this is part of it that I really like. It's comic time. It's he's literally golden now. He's just got to get away. And he just, lo and behold. But it's also it's the reveal of what's his name in it now? Of Big Rames, Marcellus Wallace. It's also the reveal because you haven't properly seen him yet. So it
is that sort of Hitchcock cameo bit that he's just in a crowd crossing the road.
Yeah, he said casually just walk over, just grab the coffee.
That pulse, and it's like he realizes who he's looking at the same time we figure out shit. That must be
and it's. I think it's played brilliantly. This bit oh shit.
So he runs him over immediately. I'm only surprised the car didn't bounce off him. Bing Rames convinces you he's made of stone.
Yeah.
He is like Man of Steel, but not obviously Superman.
Yeah, he's
You literally rock hard.
Literally rock hard.
Literally.
Rames.
Don't mess with him.
Don't get rock hard, not where they're going.
Well, not...
So yeah, he runs into a store because there's basically Ving Rhames gets up, waves a gun in the air. He runs into this kind of, is it a weapons store? It's definitely selling swords and.
Well, you get an innocent bystander gets shot in the shoulder. Again, the same woman who gets shot in Reservoir Dogs by Mr. Orange.
Okay, same actress.
Mr. Orange, yeah,
same actress. That's a fun fact. I don't know if I ruined.
That's fun, folks.
Don't know if I ruined fun facts for you guys, but.
So yeah, Willis goes in there to find something to kind of fight back with. And of course, to cut a long story short, they both end up getting sort of knocked out and tied up in there, don't they?
Yeah.
And I hate all of this.
Do you?
I hate all of
He's
this.
not a fan.
I don't know what it is because there's very little content-wise. I certainly defend the right of all this content to be there. I don't tend to get offended by very much. I just can't see what it's here for.
Well, as I said on top of the film, like on top of the podcast, this film is kind of very superfluous. There isn't really much really that means anything. Yeah, I mean, I think this scene strikes me as like one of those just really weird fucking days.
Yeah.
It's just like that, and it's.
And then I ended up bombing a gimp, which was nice.
I mean, yeah, it is like that. There isn't really much to it other than the fact that they both end up in a tight situation. Bruce Willis breaks free of it, frees out of some weird kind of I can't leave him there, and kind of breaks him free, and there's kind of like a mutual kind of like, all right.
But he walks in. I mean,
cool now.
When he walks in, Marcellus is basically being raped.
Yeah, no, he is being. It's not, but yeah, he is literally being raped.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the comedic tones, like him sort of like picking up a baseball bat, then seeing a chainsaw, then going, oh no, a samurai sword. That kind of thing. I mean, the idea of like a chained up gimp without any ability to talk whatsoever.
I know.
As
They're
your guard
prepared, don't they?
just seems like the most stupidest thing in the world.
Yeah.
but
this is a long way. This is a long way round to. Bruce is basically allowed to go free, provided he leaves town.
Yeah. Fine by me. I was doing it anyway.
Yeah, that's what he was doing anyway. He steals Zed's bike, which is one of the guys from that place. Goes to pick up his girlfriend, and it's like, this is whose bike's this? Zed's dead, baby.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the end of that story. And I just thought, what was the point? I fucking hated it.
Yeah, what's the point of that?
Well, yeah, a lot. I mean, I suppose the next one's just as like kind of inconsequential. It's just like a bunch of things. It's just.
Yeah, but it's better.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's good. And it's got actors I like watching. You know.
But
I actually want to see.
This is a voyage of discovery for me, listeners. I didn't realise I didn't like Bruce Willis. I've worked it out through this show. I don't like Bruce Willis.
But what's your opinion on the theory that it was actually Butch who keyed Vince's car?
Oh, I have always assumed it was. I've never even taken that as a.
I would sort of think it was as well.
I was trying to figure it out because he said like he did mention it a couple of days ago. So what's the timeline here? It's like is the Maria Wallace
the
evening.
gold watch is the last thing.
The gold watch is the last thing, but the Maria Wallace
The Mia Wallace section of the film
is that on the same evening as?
I think it's either the same evening or the next evening after we see them in Marcellus's bar at the start.
It mustn't be then because he said it was like a couple of days or something. There is a sort of something about that.
I thought it was the next night, but anyway, the fight was the following Friday or something like that. I think this takes place. We don't quite know when the first one is. I think it was a Monday morning, so I think the film takes place over about 5 days. If I sat down and figured it out, I could write it out. It's not that difficult. It's a few days.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, so we're on to we get sucked straight back into the apartment where they're shooting Frank Wiley.
Yeah, we get basically the tail end of the Path of the Righteous Man again. They shoot not Andrew McCarthy, and then they're shot at by not Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes.
Now there's I don't know if you've ever noticed the gaff here. There's bullet holes in the wall behind them before he's even fired.
Oh no, I never spotted that. No.
It's just a little gaff that was pointed out years ago. But yeah, this guy leaps out and he's like, "Die, motherfuckers," or whatever. Fires his gun till the chamber's empty, and has missed both of them with every shot from about 4 feet away.
And what's even a little bit more annoying, you think, hang on, if he just stayed hidden, they would have just left and you would have got killed.
I know.
if you just stayed where you are, they probably would have just like.
You were safe. They didn't know you were there. Oh dear. There's an episode of Seinfeld we never saw.
Yes, I was going to say.
He should have been sat eating a bowl of cereal, shouldn't he?
Yeah.
So they drive off. We didn't really know. I didn't twig in the first time round that Marvin was their inside person. Although I think it is there. He's asked about what. He didn't tell us how many there were. But they're driving him back in the car. What are they talking about? They're talking about something because John Travolta turns to get Marvin's opinion.
Oh well, well, first when you get the shot, they have like talk about like they'll just kind of like an act of God, and it's like, oh, don't talk about that. And then Marv's pissing off Vince, so Vince like saying like, I'm going to shoot you too if you can't. I can't.
But at some point, but then he asks his opinion on something. He says, "What do you think?" And then suddenly it cuts to outside the car at the back, and you just see blood suddenly spill. Oh. It's a wonderful shot.
Why can't I think of it now?
It's just he turns to get his opinion, but he just happens to have his.
Oh
gun.
no, yeah, they are literally talking about what's just happened, like they've been an act of miracle, and he's like thinking,
what do you think, Marvin?
Yeah.
Bang. Oh, I just shot Marvin in the face. Like most superfluous line in cinema history. Oh man, what are we gonna do? And it's like 10:30. It's like I don't know, 8:30, 9:30 in the morning on a Monday or something, and they're out on the street. They're in like commuter traffic. Stuff like that. And there's just blood everywhere. So
there is a what I think the thing that makes this part of the movie work is there's a joy of seeing people just act really sort of petulant and bitchy about like a murder scene. Like why am I picking brain off the fucking ball? You want to fucking shot him.
They drive over to this place. Jimmy was Jules's partner while Vincent was away. Jimmy's done what Jules is about to do, retired from it all. It's a Jules A. Jim reference, by the way, the French film. That's why they got those two names. They drive there because they need to get the car off the road. And the next thing is they call. I think he calls Marcellus or one of Marcellus's people, and they call the wolf. Who's that? Some family do or something, which is bizarre. 9:30 on a Monday morning, but whatever. And the wolf is Harvey Keitel.
See, I never.
He's also now reprising his character in the Direct Line adverts here in the UK. Has done for the last several years.
So, like, almost like sold his soul and the memory of the scene.
Yeah.
Like,
He really has. I just kind of think, oh bloody hell, really?
Just to pick up on that, I never knew Jimmy was a former hitman. Or used to, he never struck me as
They've got that from special features rather than directly, but it was. Jules A. Jim, where they were partners before.
In this film, he always struck me as like just someone that Jules knew rather than anyone who's outside.
Maybe I'm wrong because he doesn't exactly give off an air of professional hitman, does he?
No, he doesn't sort of like that's just thing. He just feels like sort of why are you bringing this into my life? I've no expertise, in this.
But he settled down. The reason this story is called the Bonnie situation is Jimmy is married to a nurse called Bonnie. Mm. I love the little sort of what if shot of her coming home.
Yeah.
That's so fun. This is the most comedic section of the film, although the whole film's funny. But they get there, and you've got Quentin Tarantino, which is a bit of a shock the first time you see it. It's like, oh, that's Quentin Tarantino. And he's got this whole monologue about how they shouldn't have brought him there and all the rest of it. And he says, did you notice the sign outside that said "Dead Nigger Storage"?
Yeah.
Well, in all honesty, that line is the one thing that suits Quentin to most things he ever acts. Is there's such a softness and sweetness in his voice that slight, quiet, naive guy kind of suits him. The problem is he delivers lines quite poorly, so it's kind of embarrassing how badly he acts this. But he's all right once the wolf turns up.
Yeah.
I mean, when they go to like spray them clean at the end, he looks quite gleeful and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's what I think it's in the bit where I think this should be Buscemi, because like I can see Buscemi delivering it while losing his shit. It's like do you see a sign that says technical storage? That's because no fucking that's this kind of like really sort of just a really sort of panicky.
But Eric Stoltz could have done it as well. But the point is, because I could, just as you said that, I could picture him doing it. Because that is kind of the reaction he gives when Travolta turns up with a dying woman anyway.
Yeah.
Basically, the wolf comes out to just basically calm things down. He's not telling them anything they don't know. But he comes down to calm them down and set them to work in the best possible way to cover up all of the blood, get the body hidden, get it somewhere where it can be disposed, etc. So blankets and all the rest of it. Also to pay Jimmy off.
Yeah.
So he can buy some stuff for his wife to placate her, because we get the impression no one's going to want a dead body in their house, so she'd be justified. But we get the impression she wears the trousers in that house.
Well, yeah, because obviously, what does Jimmy do for work?
Possibly nothing. We don't know. We don't know, and it's not important. He's at home and in this slot. Doesn't mean he doesn't work shifts or start a bit later or whatever.
But I think again, this is like the thing with the wolf. He just what's kind of cool, like, is his superpower was the fact that he can act calm and think rationally. And
he can do everything. He can do everything at accelerated speeds. I mean, he says, I think
it's 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 10.
Yeah, and it's like, I forget what the time says, but there's like a little time check that says something in 57 seconds later, 8 minutes and 57 seconds later or something. And that's inherently funny because he's just got enough spare brain capacity that he can deal with that accelerated pace, and they've got to clear up very fast. She's about to come off shift. Not only that, those cars have got the car's got to go back out on the road and not be clearly something wrong with it. So that's all that section is really. It's a good little section because he blasts in like such a sort of. He's an absolute blast of energy through this Harvey Keitel, and it is funny, like you say. Why am I on brain detail? He shot him.
It's the little thing where they're washing hands and the John Travolta's there like drying it, and
he's just putting pure blood on the fucking.
He's like, what the fuck is this? Like. I think that's the thing with this. It's the tiny little character details that just make you laugh. That you go, yeah. We all have a friend, and I'm not saying people who just murder people and write blood on everything, but
there's somebody who just fucks it up, and you go, "What are you fucking doing?"
But it's in an odd way. There's part of this that relates to that kind of shit. It's like, imagine, if I was implicated in a murder, I know someone, or I would probably do something that's fucking stupid. Like, do you know what I mean?
And then they're hosed down. They're put in spare clothes, hosed down, and then put in spare clothes, which is the clothes we saw them in at the bar earlier. That's why they're wearing all the dodgy T-shirts and everything. But before they go to Marcellus's, they go to a diner for breakfast. And that is the diner that we see Pumpkin and Honey Bunny holding up at the start of the film. So Jules and Vincent were sat in that restaurant having breakfast when that scene went off at the start of the film.
Yeah. So basically, they pick up on that conversation. It's like literally, like they had the conversation about being a spiritual thing, and then obviously they shot Marv in the face. So that
I love the line that always sticks with me from this is when they're talking about he doesn't eat pork, and they're talking about how personality goes a long way, and he's saying that would have to be one charming motherfucking pig. And then he says he's going to quit and walk the earth like Kane in Kung Fu. Now that reference, I wonder how age sensitive that was. Do you get that reference, Becca?
A little bit before my time, but you have a little bit of knowledge of Kung Fu cinema.
Kung Fu was a TV show with David Carradine in it.
Yeah.
And he used to kind of walk from place to place like a lot of these 70s films. He basically probably was in like... He was probably travelling with Bill Bixby and The Littlest Hobo because it's the same principle.
Well, these 70s.
Yeah, it was a Western Kung Fu film, basically.
It was pretty much, wasn't it?
It's a TV show, but yeah. It's pretty good in its way.
Something else we can also mention in Kill Bill.
Definitely, because obviously David Carradine would have been
cast
on the basis of stuff like that as well. But yeah, Kung Fu's a 70s TV show, and the main character was called Kane. So walk the earth like Kane in Kung Fu. Scan's better than walk the earth like Bruce Banner in The Incredible Hulk. You could have said that. You could have said anything.
Yeah.
But it scans really well. But that reference is being lost to time now. But it's funny. It made me smile at the time. So yeah, they go around robbing the restaurant, and when they get to Jules just is calm. They want him to open the case, which is the whole point of them going to that apartment in the first place. Get that case back, and he won't do it. Or I think he does open it at some point, but it shows him. Is that what I think it is? But yeah, they won't give him that. And he won't
it's the MacGuffin.
Yes. But then you got Vincent, and you can tell Vincent is going to be useless when Jules goes because he keeps nearly inflaming the situation. You got Amanda Plummer, who just desperately loves her man and doesn't want him to get hurt, and you got Jules threatening to Vincent threatening to shoot him and shoot her.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if you were just randomly walked in the situation, you'd be like, what the fuck's going on? And yeah, like, if you let this guy walk away for like $500 or $1,500, I'm going to shoot him on principle.
Yeah, he does. He gives him the contents of his wallet and says, with that, you've made a pretty good score today.
Yeah.
But he takes him through the path of the righteous man, delivered totally differently because he sat calmly at a table and just says, and starts talking about who each of them are in that parable. And he's saying about how he's trying to be the shepherd. I really like this. Samuel L. Jackson was just electric. If he'd never made another film, this would have been burned on my brain.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like, there's just the notion of the fact that it's like, you think I'm just giving you that money. I'm not, you're not seeing it. I'm buying something, and what I'm buying is your soul. This kind of like trying to reach out to people, like trying to change and be a force for something better. Is powerful, just thinking about it, really. And of course, Samuel Jackson just commands the screen anyway, with the whole thing.
I've not seen big screen presence. I think it was the first time I'd seen big screen presence projected like that before.
Yeah.
He just absolutely came out and just grabbed us all by the scruff of the neck.
And at this point, he was like a jobbing actor as well. He was like he was one of those.
He'd been very lauded for Jungle Fever.
Oh, was it Jungle Fever?
Jungle Fever was because Samuel L. Jackson was I may get this wrong. I think he was a heroin addict, educated man, happily married man, everything, but a heroin addict. One of the reasons Samuel L. Jackson makes so many films and plays so much golf now is to keep himself busy. It's part of the whole managing the addiction. Now, I don't know how vulnerable he is these days because he's been clean for years, but he was in Jungle Fever in about 1990 as an addict when he'd only just come clean himself. So that was a major big deal. But he was still using when he was in things like Coming to America, Robin McDowell's, his signature role.
He was always the. He always seemed to be like, oh, that guy actor. He seems to sort of like progress from, oh, it's that guy who's constantly been doing small little roles.
He's in Goodfellas. He's one of the people that does that big score at the end of the film and gets shot in the back of the head. But this is the film that really, really popularised the guy. And I actually, on balance, prefer him in Jackie Brown, but this is his signature performance. Talking of which, just as an aside, we've been offered another charity cast.
Have we?
For the spring, right? When it's the person's birthday, they want to kick in again and get us to do Coming to America.
All right.
Oh, okay.
I'm totally fucking up for that.
Oh, yeah, fine.
Let's do it.
In a weird way, it is the sequel to Trading Places.
It is totally the sequel to Trading Places, which is my next choice for the Christmas commentary.
Dun, dun, dun. But
it ain't my choice next time, though. So we've got to stay alive, and computers have got to still exist and stuff.
Yeah, we've got to wait till
Why not?
2019 before we do that, and then 2020
it'll be a while
for Jingle All the Way. So stay tuned, listeners.
Oh, God.
I honestly thought you were joking, but we are doing Jingle All the Way, aren't we?
I think we are.
I might change my mind, but yeah, probably. But probably.
So yeah, there's something very sweet about the way Pumpkin and Honey Bunny leave the restaurant. The way he's captured them there. After all that, you think, what a sweet pair.
What, they just walk out the diner?
Yeah.
Didn't pay for their meals, the bastards, though. But
No, he didn't. Dash.
They walked out with like $8,000 of customers' money. They could at least slap down, $12.
Yeah, but neither do Vince and Jules, though. They just go, well, we should get away.
They just walk out. They did eat as well, because we saw him eating, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh, well. Bastards.
And, and then the film ends, and there we are. That's Pulp Fiction.
Final thoughts, folks.
It is a classic alternate spur. I think what attracts people to this is, A, the filmmaking on display with the acting, but also it's just so watchable. I think what it is, it's trademark Tarantino with his dialogue and just how the film just flows and just hypnotise you, even though there isn't much beyond that surface. It, you can't help but just enjoy it for what it is.
This is probably one of the most famous Tarantino movies. And for me, certainly as a film student back in the day, it was kind of more of an entry point along with Reservoir Dogs. Yeah, I'd say for me it was one of like the least watched films. Actually, next week's film is probably one that I had hardly seen at all prior to this moment.
You're in for a treat, Becca. You're in for a treat.
I know. I'm looking forward to it, definitely. But yeah, no, it's just lots of iconic scenes, iconic moments, infinitely quotable as well. As we discussed, there are some scenes which are just like, what the hell was, what is happening? Why? It just seems to me out of step with the rest of the film. And definitely in terms of like sort of mid to late 90s, other directors and other films, TV shows, what was in the popular culture tried to ape it endlessly. So that kind of detracts from the effect a little bit. But no, I think this is Tarantino at his most iconic.
I think that when we went through the Bond series, we pointed out how Goldfinger was the Bond film, and it was none of our favourites. I mean, I think we all put it forth in the end, but it was the Bond film. If you said
the quintessential, I was going to say
the Bond film. Yeah,
I was going to say the word I was going to use to describe it is formulaic, but not in that negative way. Is literally like you can plot the Bond formula by watching.
You can, but the point I'm trying to make is just that there have been better films. But if someone says, "Give us a Bond film," Goldfinger is very hard.
Tarantino movie. Pulp
It
Fiction.
is. It is, and this is the first line of his obituary. Pulp Fiction director, Quentin Tarantino passed away. Whenever that comes, hopefully decades from now. He's still got a couple films left in him, so we can't say that for certain. It isn't my favourite. I
hope we end up bumming him off by accident.
For a 2 hour, oh please God no. For a 2 hour, when it's Brucey and he's 89, I can live with that.
But when he's only in his 50s, no.
Everyone form a protective cordon around Quentin Tarantino. Do you expect us to talk? I've just mentioned his but yeah, I mean, this is for a 2 hour, 35-minute film. It's kind of slight, like Chris said, and there are films in his canon I prefer. I think if we were doing a rankings episode like we did with Bond, and we won't because there's only 9, although we may run through them at the end. It goes higher than I want to rank it because it's so important to his filmography. It's so important to cinema around it. It had a real effect, largely by being copied, frankly, but it had an effect on cinema. It had a real shot in the arm for independent film. Not by itself. There was stuff like Clerks and Slacker and stuff like that as well in the 2 or 3 years around here. I don't love it like I want to love it, but from moment to moment, just being around these characters, doing what they do is kind of joyous. I find this with Jackie Brown next week. First 45 minutes of Jackie Brown, not an awful lot happens. You're kind of just hanging out with the characters. And Tarantino does that better than virtually any other director. I acknowledge its importance. I acknowledge almost supernaturally good casting and score and soundtrack choices as well for this film. Clearly a major talent had arrived. It's blown up in scope and ambition from last week, even though I'm very fond of Reservoir Dogs. This is one of the most important films, if not the most important film of the 1990s. Doesn't make it the best, but when, that time capsule we often talk about for decades, a time capsule for the 1990s would have Pulp Fiction in it. And
definitely, certainly in terms of technological and characters.
But I don't know enough about it, let's be honest.
We all need to be
facted.
Yes. With some fun, hopefully.
Fun
My
facts.
grandpa took these fun facts and shoved up his ass.
These facts.
I didn't know Christopher Walken was on the show.
Yeah, he's not, though, is he?
No, he's not.
I mean, obviously, we threw our best impressionist at it.
We just have the voice of an angel, We need to get, who's that guy? Or get somebody like Jim Carrey or something to come on and do it.
Oh yeah, because that'll go down well, Dave, won't it? Jim Carrey.
Yeah. I'm such a fan of your work and anti-vaxxing stance, you fucking bellend.
Yeah, exactly.
Wasn't that Maury's ex-wife though, or Well, maybe I'm not that
He's
with
still
it.
tweeting about it now. Then
Is he?
twat.
All right.
Oh, you don't like him, but you follow him on Twitter.
No, I think someone reposted that. That
Oh.
was retweeted by someone who was pointing out what a wanker he is.
Good. Yeah, I've got 5 fun facts. Well, facts that you may or may not find fun.
No, it's branded as fun facts. Make them fun, Becca. Find the joy.
Find the fun.
those words.
I'm flying off the seat of my pants for the fun. Go on.
Well, it's not so fun, but I think it's quite interesting. So Vince Vega's 1964 Chevelle Malibu actually belonged to Quentin Tarantino and was sadly stolen during production. So that's a fact, but it's not
Did
fun.
anyone check John Travolta's house?
No,
All right, fair enough.
borrowing it.
Well, it's fun for us, but I'm sure it wasn't fun for Quentin. No.
No.
John just
it
whipping
wasn't.
off for a massage.
Fun fact number 2, the F word is said around 265 times in the film. Maybe more, maybe less. But yeah, that's a lot of F-bombs, y'all.
Yeah, been far beaten by many other films. I think that's less than Goodfellas, and I think it's probably less than the sad part of the movie.
Well, definitely. I'll say, considering Tarantino's films are kind of famously quite sweary, that's quite low on the F-bomb scale.
It's is this the F-bomb thing?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think of it as a sweary film, but I think that's just because I don't really notice. I think I'm kind of good to that stuff.
I mean, like I know Spike Lee had a thing about the N-word, doesn't he? About he chastised Quentin about.
Yeah. But he
Yeah.
did. I may have this wrong, but I'm sure he changed his mind. I'm sure a little later in his career he retracted that.
Yeah.
And actually said, no, actually, in context as well. If you know a bit about Quentin Tarantino's background as well, it suddenly becomes a bit more forgivable. Do I wish it wasn't there? I do, actually. But at the same time, I know enough of the context to understand why it is and not have a major problem with it.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm guessing sort of like you're dealing with the characters who are saying it rather than like the voice of the filmmaker.
Yeah, it's everything in context.
Yeah.
Fun fact number 3. Obviously, near the end, Joel says that he wants to retire and become a drifter. Obviously, in Kill Bill.
He'd be good in The Drifters. I haven't heard him sing. I really
missing
like
member
Saturday
of the
Night at the Movies, and I reckon he could sing that quite well.
Obviously, in Kill Bill, he pops up as a piano playing drifter.
Yeah, I heard he was in that film, and I was so disappointed. Like, when
Find out that he wasn't a
actors
drifter.
Well, no, I just thought, oh, Samuel L. Jackson's in Kill Bill too. Brilliant. Like, that's
Oh.
it.
Yeah, but
So-
can you miss it?
Yes, but it's definitely not actually him though, is it? Because it's a film inside the movie.
Yeah, it's like film inside the film.
It's the movie universe.
Yeah,
Yes.
movie. This is all getting very complicated. Fun fact number 4. In 2007, the American Film Institute ranked this film, Pulp Fiction, the 97th greatest film of all time. And in 2008, Empire magazine voted this film number 9 in their list of the greatest films of all time.
Yeah, if I were closer to right. I think 9 is a massive overestimation of its qualities.
Yeah, I seem to remember they voted. They had the Empire do these polls all the time. I seem to remember one time they did. What did they rank? It was something other than Lord of the Rings, which perennially pops up in the top 10.
Yeah, it was like Lord of the Rings. It's usually Godfather or Empire Strikes Back.
That was it. Yeah.
Or
And then something different kind of made the headlines.
Shawshank's been a popular one.
And then the
isn't it?
next year they were like, "That's fine."
Well, Shawshank's number 1 in the IMDb list.
Definitely, rightly so. I think there's a podcast called the 250. I think that
Which, funnily enough, was came up.
that Tony might have something to do with, and they're working their way through the top 250
Well, yeah,
on
funny enough,
IMDb.com.
it was what was up for the Oscars as well, wasn't it? In 1905.
This is the 94 films for the 94 Oscars delivered in 95. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Shawshank Redemption was a big flop. This one, I don't know.
That's
if
like a
this
proper
is
cult film, isn't it? Because it was a flop upon release, but it has since gained like a massive cult following.
I think its name was a problem. How do you sell something called the Shawshank Redemption?
Yeah, it's quite a long name.
it's basically it's not like it wasn't like a big name thing. It wasn't like it was a short story amongst a Stephen King novel, so it
It
wasn't
was
really
one of his Batman books.
Yeah, so it wasn't really much
Exactly.
to sell on, other than the fact that this has got Morgan Freeman in it, and it's meant to be good, which I'm sure people went and seen it and thought it was great, but at the time it wasn't like So it's just one of those films that kind of grew because obviously through time when people watched it, word of mouth spread because it's like, oh, this is good, and it's obviously Yeah, ooh.
Word of mouth is very camp in our world. What do you think of that? Ooh.
Trying to do all your
Time
Kenneth
for some more
Williams impressions.
factage.
Anyway, I've got a fifth and final fun fact. Christopher Walken's cameo scene was shot on the very last day of filming. And whilst he's telling you about the watch.
Look at this watch at me out.
Whilst he's telling you about the watch that is shoved up his ass, he actually makes a pause in between his dialogue, and he actually forgets his lines. But luckily, he managed to pull it back just in time and makes it look convincing, and they kept it in the take.
It's well, that's probably what Christopher Walken does. It's like...
He pauses anyway, so who can tell any different when he forgets?
No, that's just how he sounds.
That's always a mark of a good actor. That and spitting.
Spitting.
Yeah, there are some brilliant porn actors out there on that basis.
I think Dave failed to reference the second Friends reference.
Oh.
What?
Okay.
What have we got?
The mark of a good actor is pronunciation.
I've just picked up the reference now. It's when Gary Oldman and him are shooting at World War One.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh, I forgot about that.
He's told he can't be at the
pocket
wedding,
in
and he
your
says, "I've got plans. You put plans."
That's my 5 fun facts, y'all. Instead of Fox Force 5.
Well, I had fun with that.
My 5 foxy facts.
That's probably the longest 5 fun facts we've had for a while.
Well, yeah, because we're recording. We've reached this point in the show slightly earlier than usual. Normally, by the time we get to fun facts, Becca is fucking exhausted and just goes, "I don't know one. I don't know 2." She's
That's
actually
only 10:30, and it's like,
she's actually quite alert now. That's why.
She's had a shot of heroin. That's why. No kidding.
I've actually kind of had half a day off, so that makes all the difference.
Yeah, that would do it. I know what that's like.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally he's got to work all day handing tissues from a distance.
Lurking from behind a curtain. There we go.
Strangely enough, Chris isn't in any of those sort of motivational wonderful NHS videos.
Oh, dear. Well, as long as you don't come down with that stomach, no, what's it called? Australian flu, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Good advice for us all there.
Yeah, don't get sick, people. Right.
No.
And that's from a nurse.
Yeah, it was from Becca.
Yeah, but you agreed.
Okay.
Which gave it that stamp of all.
Yeah, you kind of got more like the more professional weighting here, so.
Yeah, but I don't think so. I'm not even qualified.
No, but you will be.
Okay, it's from an incompetent nurse.
Oh, wanna be?
Yeah. And in trading. Oh, okay. So what we
Anyway,
do?
yes, that's the show. Where can we all be found on the social media? Chris, where can we find you?
You can find me at Cinematronics on the Twitter box. You can also find this podcast at assuming you already have, because how else would you be listening? But you can check out other shows.
My ears.
Oh yeah, at cinematronics.co.uk.
Dave, where can we find you?
You can find me at the Pasty Kid 1976 on Twitter.
You can find us on Twitter at Expect Us to Talk. You could drop us an email if you would like to, providing you're not a Nigerian king wanting to sell us all your money. expectustotalk@gmail.com. We're on facebook.com/expectustotalk. We're also on YouTube. If you just type in "Do you expect us to talk" in the search bar, and you should find us. And also we're on iTunes and Stitcher.
The same quality show, but with a still image for 2 hours.
Do you think we'll ever do? I certainly don't want to. But do you think sometime
That's answered the question.
we might do the? Yeah, that's answered it. No. Well, I could just have wear some kind of mask or something. Would we do like a show where we show our images?
Like we're robbing a bank or something. Hell. No, I intend to do, unless you want to pay us absurd money to go and tour this show, which is where real money is.
We could do like, how did this get made?
Yeah, exactly. I would do live shows of this, but I've no intention of like doing them in video.
No, me neither, to be honest.
So yeah, but where would we do live shows in people's
You want
living
to hire a
rooms?
theatre for us that no one's going to visit? Write to us.
We could do like town halls or I don't know, library.
People's living rooms, basically, like
People's living rooms,
our
yeah.
level. Like,
we'll just crash cancel meetings.
Or at school halls, maybe. People's living rooms.
We're going to be popular with school teachers, definitely.
Well, no, start for cash generation funds.
if you're a school teacher, please contact us at DoYouSpect.
gmail.com.
Yeah, I mean, why not throw us a question? Maybe just like ask us, whatever you want, providing it's not rude. Or maybe
Yeah,
it
I
is
agree.
rude.
Or if it is rude, don't ask Becca because she gets flustered with that sort of thing. I tend to answer everything. Having said that, there's
I've just filled it on
shitloads
to Kristen.
there's shitloads at the moment I don't want to talk about, so be careful.
Only because it's about films that we've got coming up in the pipeline, so top secret. Shh.
It's fair to say most listeners don't know quite how long my pipeline is.
Very long pipeline.
Because I've had a look at it this evening and it's fucking massive.
Well, we've got Marvel coming up. That's to the ages.
Yeah, Marvel will take about 6 months.
That's like the rest of this year. Fucking hell.
Well, I hope we'll get to Planet of the Apes before the end of the year. Because it's 50 years old this year. But we'll try and
that'd be exciting.
as well this year as well. But yeah, I mean, we have an idea a long way ahead. But we obviously we know what the next two. The other thing with Marvel is, I can't say for certain whether we'll break it up or not. Because I got bored during Star Trek. So there's a part of me that thinks I don't want to do 17 films in a row.
No, that was a really, really long series.
We didn't struggle with Bond. Marvel's light and varied anyway, and we may just find like we're okay with it. So I still can't tell you if Marvel's going to be in like 3 bits broken up by 2 other series, The Godfather and Spider-Man probably, or whether we're going to attack it in one hit. I really don't know yet.
Maybe we just leave you fans on a tender hook with that. Maybe we just go.
To be honest, it's going to be all the same stuff, whatever the film is.
Yeah, it's going to be us talking shit for 2
It's
hours.
the same old shit, whatever the film is. Don't matter.
Same old shit, different movie.
Yeah, definitely. So,
Talking of a different movie,
Do you expect to talk or return with our review of Jackie Brown?